Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Haggerty. Was here to talk about another tea with Andrew. I like to do these for multiple reasons. One of them is when people are having issues and things, it's a good way to come back and say, hey, if someone in my office is having this problem or seeing this issue, probably a lot of people are. Um, Something I'm still seeing a lot of people have issues with is definitely when we're going in and talking about the um, third party financing form, but more importantly, the addendum for appraisal. I think a lot of people, it's still tripping people up and not understanding how to fill it correctly. So I want to make sure people who are doing this are doing it right and understand what they're actually writing. So we're going to go look at the .lu form. And first, we're going to look at the third party financing addendum form. This form has been around for a long time, but I want to make sure you guys actually understand what it's doing and what the goal is. First, we've got the type of financing. If it's going to be either conventional, Texas Veteran Loan, FHA, VA or USD guaranteed, or reverse mortgage financing. So we have all those options available to us. We need to make sure we understand, one, what kind of a loan we're doing. Because here's the problem. We're writing a contract saying in this contract, this is going to be a conventional loan. If we change loans to FHA, VA, we are altering what we've agreed to do in the contract. So should be getting an amendment when we're going and changing it from FHA to VA to FHA, or to conventional, because we're saying in the contract, hey, I'm taking out a loan. This is the financing I'm using. So we need to know first mortgage loan, what is the amount we're borrowing? This number should match on the first page in paragraph 2, as far as amount borrowed. Is it going to be a 15-year, 30-year mortgage? Interest rate not to exceed a certain percentage for the first blank number of years, and origination charges as shown below. Now, there's going to be a second mortgage. Don't see a lot of second mortgages today. Back when I first got into the real estate business, there were a ton of 80-20, 80-15-5 loans out there, and we don't see them nearly as much as we used to. But if there is a second loan, we need to know, because the sad truth is the second loan is usually going to have a much worse interest rate. So we need to be aware of that going in. Texas Veterans Loans, this is a great program that actually lowers the interest rate. So what they're going to be doing and how it's going to work on that end, if it is a Texas Veterans loan. FHA, we need to know what kind of section. Is it going to be a 203K? Is it going to be a 203B? What kind of FHA insured financing are we going to use? Now, as we know, the most standard is 203B. 203K is a loan you're going to take out if you're going to do upgrades to the property, and include those in the loan amount. So normally, 99% of the time, you're going to use a FHA loan. Is going to be a Section 203B FHA insured loan of not less than, again, loan amount there, excluding any financed MIP. So even if we're going to add MIP or later in a VA guaranteed loan, we're not going to throw that money into the loan amount. Amortized monthly for not less than, again, is it going to be 30 years, 15, 20, whatever number is that going to be? And then again, a percentage point not to exceed a certain amount per annum for the first blank number of years, with an origination fee not to be above a certain amount. Now, VA guaranteed financing right now, a lot of veterans are feeling a little neglected when it comes to VA loans, saying that they're not getting their fair share. And there's truth to that. I think a VA guaranteed loan is a fantastic product. I believe the veterans have done what they need to do to serve our country, and we need to be giving back and making sure they have all the opportunities available to them. The nice thing about a VA loan that other ones don't allow for is something called a floodwater. Now, what that means is if the loan does not appraise according to the VA appraiser to the number we need, they will actually notify the seller's agent, and say, hey, I'm not getting these comps. Can you get me comps to come up with why you and justify the numbers that you have for this contract? So it gives you a better chance to fight the appraisal before it's actually turned in and submitted. So that is one great benefit of the VA guarantee financing. Now, another thing to understand is, if you're a listing agent or someone in that effect, an FHA insured loan, if you get a FHA appraisal, it'll stay with the property for 6 months, whereas a VA or conventional will not. So if you get a bad appraisal with an FHA loan, you put it back on the market, get another FHA loan in 2 months, they're going to get the same number, the same appraisal guaranteed. Where VA and conventional, it's a one shot. So that is a huge opportunity as well for everyone out there to make sure they understand that. Now, going through the VA guaranteed loan, again, a guaranteed loan not less than blank amount of dollars, excluding any finance funding fee, amortized monthly for not less, again, 15, 20 years, interest not to exceed and the amount that is put there per annum for the first blank years, 15, 20, 30, with a loan with origination fees as shown in the bars on this loan not to exceed a percentage. Now, The important thing to understand when we're filling out these loans, especially today, last week they raised interest rates. So you need to make sure you're not putting an unrealistic number. If you're putting 2.5% here, not a lot of people are going to be getting a 2.5% interest rate at this current moment. So you need to make sure it's a realistic number. When you're filling this out, you need to have that conversation with your loan officer and hopefully have a copy of your client's loan approval form so you can work off that number, those numbers. USDA guaranteed financing is USD loans are, of course, agricultural-based loans, or for like farm kind of properties that have some kind of agricultural-based or more rural-based to them. Works the same way. Reverse mortgage financing, also known as home equity conversion mortgage loan. You can pull money out of equity out of your property and buy a property, and if you're going to be doing that, you would use this loan as well. Now, so those are the types of loans to go through. Approval financing, is this buyer, there's two types of approval that we're worried about: buyer approval and property approval. Buyer approval is we need to make sure the buyer actually has a job and the means to repay the loan, and the contract is going to be subject to the buyer obtaining buyer approval. If buyer cannot obtain buyer approval, buyer may give written notice to the seller within blank days. Now, what we're saying here is very simple. I want as many days as possible for a buyer and as few days as possible for a seller, because this is the date in which the buyer can get out of the loan, the contract. Again, this is based on the contract. I'm not reading it or giving any ideas on legal advice, but this is the date of the contract saying, hey, if I can't get approved within 25 days, I don't have to continue buying this home because I couldn't get approved. On the 26th day, as the contract reads, not as I'm saying to you, you no longer get to say, I don't have to buy this home because I don't approve, because you're out of time with the buyer approval. So you need to make sure you're aware of that date in there and how that's going to work. So either A, yes, the buyer's approval is required, or B, this contract is not subject to buyer being approved. Property approval. If buyer's lender determines the property does not satisfy lender's underwriting requirements for the loan, including but not limited to appraisal, insurability, and lender required repairs, buyer no later than 3 days before the closing date may terminate this contract by giving seller notice of termination and copy of a written statement from the lender setting forth the reasons for lender's determination. If buyer terminates under this paragraph, the earnest money will be refunded to buyer. If buyer does not terminate under this paragraph, property approval is deemed to have been obtained. So as you see, there's not really an option there for will or will not. Property approval has to be approved by the lender to be able to loan on this property. So the buyer can or cannot have to be subject to approval, but there's still a property approval that the lender has to agree to give money on this property. Security, each one of the finances described above must be secured by vendors and deed of trust. Now, paragraph 4 is FHA and VA required provision. So it does not apply if it's a conventional loan. And this was a huge misconception for a lot of people for a long time, and why they created the addendum for appraisal. If the finance described above involves FHA insured or VA financing, it is expressly agreed that notwithstanding any other provision of this contract, purchasers should not be obligated to complete the purchase of the property described herein or to incur any penalties by forfeiture of earnest money, deposits, or otherwise, unless buyers have been given in accordance with HUD, FHA, or VA requirements a written statement issued by the Federal Housing Commissioner, Department of Veterans Affairs, or direct endorsement letter setting forth the appraised value of the property is not less than blank dollars. Or if the contract purchase price or cost exceeds the reasonable value of the property established by the Department of Veterans Affairs. The 3-day notice of termination requirement in 2B does not apply to this paragraph 4. So what that's saying is, if it's an FHA or VA loan and it does not appraise, the buyer can get out of the property. There's no way to get around that. Buyer shall have the privilege and option of the proceedings with consumption of the contract without regard to the amount of the appraised value. Evaluation as a reasonable value established by the Department of Veterans Affairs. And if the FHA financing is involved, the appraised valuation is derived to determine the maximum mortgage the Department of Housing and Urban Development will insure. HUD does not warrant the value of the condition of the property, and the buyer should satisfy himself or herself. If VA financing is involved, the buyer elects to complete the purchase at any amount in excess. So the buyer has the right to continue to purchase the home. They don't have to do it. They can't give away their right to be able to get out of it. Authorization to release information. Buyer authorizes buyers lender to furnish the seller or buyer their representatives information relating to the status of the approval of the financing, and seller and buyer authorize buyer's lender, title company, and escrow agent to disclose and furnish a copy. So that's what this form is doing. Okay, this is the third-party financing form. We've all seen it 1,000 times, but I doubt a lot of you have actually read it. Now, going back and talking about this appraisal addendum, this was created not too long ago, and it's creating a lot of, whoops, I double clicked. Get back in there. So it's creating a lot of misunderstandings for people of how to do it. So addendum concerning right to terminate due to lender's appraisal. This is a huge, huge form, and it's very confusing for a lot of people. And it says very clearly at the top, use only if the third-party financing addendum is attached to the contract and the transaction does not involve FHA insured or VA guaranteed financing. If it's an FHA or VA loan, you do not use this form. Financing described in the third-party financing addendum attached to the contract for the sale of the above referenced property does not involve FHA or VA financing. So as you can see, the very top two lines of this form say, do not use if it's FHA or VA. Now we have three options on this form. We can either do a full waiver, a partial waiver, or we're not going to waive the appraisal at all. So our first option is a full waiver. Buyer waives the right to terminate this contract under paragraph 2B of the third-party financing addendum if the property approval is not obtained because opinion of value in the appraisal does not satisfy lender's underwriting requirements. If the lender reduces the amount of loan due to the opinion of value, the cash portion of sales price is increased by the amount of the loan is reduced due to the appraisal. So what this is saying is, I agree to buy this home no matter what. I'm offering $400,000. If it appraises for $150,000, I will bring $250,000 cash to the table, and I can't back out because of that. You need to be very careful if you put this form into play and you pick option one. You need to make sure your client is fully understanding they are on the hook for the difference in cash, period. Partial waiver says, I am willing to do that up to a point. Buyer waives buyer's right to terminate this contract under paragraph 2B of the third-party financing addendum if property approval is not obtained because the opinion of value of the appraisal does not satisfy lender's underwriting requirements, and the opinion of value is blank or more. Blank or more, okay? I've seen a lot of people say, I'm willing to pay up to, even if it's $10,000 less, I'll still buy it. And they write $10,000 there. If you write $10,000 there, you're saying this home has to appraise for at least $10,000 or I will buy this home. So using the same sample examples we used before, if I put an offer of a $400,000 home and say, even if it doesn't appraise for $10,000 less, I'll still buy it. I would write the opinion of value is $390 or more. So this is saying, listen, I'm willing to buy this home. If this home appraises at $390 or above, I'll still buy it for $400,000. That's what partial waiver part 2 states. If lender reduces the amount, buyer's going to make up the difference in cash. Paragraph 3 takes it back to kind of how the VA and FHA have the advantage in the third-party financing condition. So paragraph 3 says your additional right to terminate. In addition to a buyer's right to terminate under paragraph 2B of the third-party financing addendum, buyer may terminate the contract within blank days after the effective date if the appraised value according to the appraisal obtained by lender is less than blank and buyer delivers a copy of the appraisal to the seller. If the buyer terminates under this paragraph, earnest money will be refunded to buyer. So you need to put the amount in there equal to the sales price that you're wanting to purchase the property or whatever, because that is specifically what we're trying to say. If we're doing a partial waiver, you put it in the second section. If not, we want the full and third. Now, a couple things to think about here. Buyer may terminate the contract within blank days. We have to make sure we're putting enough time in that box that we can get the appraisal done and given back. If I say 10 days and it takes 40 days for the appraisal to come back, I've outrun my effective date. So you need to make sure when you're writing these contracts with these addendums that we're being realistic about the numbers and how we're doing it. Also, you do have to send the seller a copy of your appraisal if you're going out on this way. Okay, so this is just things I see people mess up a lot here, and here. So make sure when you're filling this out, you understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it. Take some time, read it thoroughly, be careful, and make sure you do recommend your buyers what they're walking into if they do this. If they're saying a full waiver, if it appraises $100,000 under contract, we're still buying it. We're having to come to the table with cash. It's just something I see a lot, guys. It's kind of all I've got today. I've just seen issues, and I want to make sure you know what's happening, how it's working. And if you got questions, always feel free to give me a call. So if you don't know my number, well, I'm not that hard to find. I'm easy to find. But I just see issues with these come up quite often. So with that, guys, that's pretty much all I've got today. We look forward to seeing you next week. Next week on Wednesday, I will be teaching all day in Dallas. So I'm either going to record early or we're going to figure something else out. So, but we'll decide. We might have a coffee with Nick instead of a tea with Andrew, just because I'll be in Dallas. But with that, guys, that's all I've got. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Appreciate it.